workshop on how to do the emotional freedom technique. In this workshop, you'll learn how to do EFT on various different symptoms that you might be currently experiencing. So for the purpose of this workshop, you need to understand that EFT is both a self-help technique, but it is also a technique that is used by psychologists and counsellors, psychotherapists, and EFT practitioners. So you may want to use it as a self-help technique, which is what I have always done with amazing results. It is important, if you have a medical health condition, to talk to your healthcare practitioner or doctor to make sure that EFT is compatible with your medication and your therapies that you might be undertaking at the moment. EFT should not replace your current medication or your current therapy or any advice given by your doctor. I'm going to start by asking you a very simple, how are you? Normally when people ask, they are only expecting a simple, okay, thanks, how are you? But today I want you to explore more deeply how you are. How are you? What's on your mind? How are you feeling mentally? How are you feeling physically? How are you feeling spiritually? What's stressing you at the moment? And what symptoms are coming up for you? What symptoms are surfacing in your life? The reason we need to acknowledge how we're really feeling is because in order to move our lives forward, we need to be able to be present and be comfortable in the present. And not just comfortable, but happy in the present. Now, this can be difficult if in the present we're feeling symptoms that we don't want to feel. We're feeling angry, we're feeling insecure, we're feeling fearful, we're feeling lots of different emotions and lots of negative thinking that we just would rather not be thinking about. So this is why in the past, or up until the current day, it has been widely accepted as what you're meant to do is push these feelings aside or suppress these feelings so that you can get on with your day. We have been told in the past that it's best to harden up and get over it and soldier on, because if we really looked at it and we were emotional, then our emotions might stop us from doing our work or carrying out our daily duties. So what we really need is we need tools in order to shift these emotions and negative thoughts as they surface so that we are happy in the present and we can be more present, because it's being present that's going to help our lives move forward. Now there is a shift going on, and the shift is a shift from this soldiering on, hardening up mentality to acknowledging how we actually feel and dealing with that emotion or symptom, shifting it, moving it on, healing it, nurturing it, finding a way to overcome it so that we can enjoy ourselves in the present moment. Instead of suppressing these emotions, we are recognizing that it's very important not to suppress, because suppressing emotion is what causes more health problems. You're stacking up your issues in your body. This is why we end up later on in life, after we have retired, and we now have time to think to ourselves, and we now have time to feel what's going on in our lives because we don't have to soldier on. This is often when all these things surface. So it is best to deal with these as early as possible as they arise, so that you're not storing them and you're moving them on, or you're shifting them, healing from them, learning from them, and growing from them. And that way we can evolve as we go through life. We don't have to wait until we're retired and having time to ourselves to actually think about how it is we feel and all the negative emotions and memories from the past surfacing and causing us both psychological and physical pain at a time that we're meant to be relaxing and enjoying our lives and the hard work that we've done. So what has enabled us to make this shift? There is now a way to relieve these symptoms, and the best part is that it's free, it's easy, it's fast, and it's really effective. And it's called the Emotional Freedom Technique. So what is EFT? EFT is a tapping technique that is similar to acupuncture by tapping on meridian points while describing the symptom you are experiencing. After completing a round or two of EFT, it will decrease the intensity of the symptom that you're experiencing. And often it significantly decreases the intensity. To begin to use EFT, you need to get used to tapping on the points. You would normally tap longer than this, but just to give you an example of an EFT round, we're just going to do a quick tap round the points. We begin with the karate chop. This one's right on the corner of the eyebrow. This one's on the other side of the eye. This one's under the eye. This one's under the nose. This one's in the crease of the chin. This one's on the collarbone. This one's under the arm. For the women, it's along the bra strap. And the last one's on top of the head. So that's one round of EFT. Right, now we need to create our EFT sentence. Here are some examples of EFT sentences. So say someone is feeling anxious. This would be a sentence to help decrease that anxiety. Even though I am feeling very anxious, I deeply and completely accept myself. Or if someone has a headache, they might say, even though I have a headache, I deeply and completely accept myself. Now, an EFT sentence has two parts to it. The first part of the sentence is describing your symptom. So even though I feel anxious, even though I'm worried about my health, that might be a negative thought that you've got going on. Even though I have a pain in my stomach, or even though I hate my job, even though I'm fearful of the dog next door. Now, the second part of the sentence is getting you to acknowledge that you accept yourself even though you're experiencing this symptom. So it's important to note that this is not you accepting the symptom. It is you accepting yourself even though you are experiencing this symptom. So the first thing we need to do is identify our most intense issue. The most effective way to use EFT is to focus on the most intense symptom that you're experiencing right now. Relax and close your eyes for a few moments and ask yourself, what is it that you're feeling at the moment? It may be a physical pain, or it may be a fear of something. What emotions are you feeling? What negative thoughts are coming to your head? When you think about what is stressing you the most, what is that situation and what does it surface for you? How do you feel about it? Once you recognize what your most intense issue is, that's what we need to focus on today. Now, write down your most intense issue. Now, it's very important that when you're writing the first half of the sentence, we need to write as much detail as possible. If it's a situation or it's something a bit more involved than just feeling angry or feeling upset or you've got a physical pain, because those are more relatively easy to structure in a sentence. But if it's a little bit more complex, like it's a situation or it's more of a paragraph of information, then you need to derive from that paragraph, after you've written it down, what are the emotions that surface? Or what is the negative thought or fear that's arising? Or how does this make you feel? And what is the most intense issue or the most intense symptom that it brings up for you? Now, when you describe this issue, it's good to, instead of saying I have a headache, it's better to say I have a sharp or tingling or aching or throbbing pain in my head, rather than I have a headache, simply because you're really honing in on the details of your issue, which makes it a lot more effective. Also, instead of just saying I feel anxious, sometimes we know why we feel anxious and sometimes we don't. And if we don't, and it's just anxiety and you're not sure where it's coming from, that's fine. You can just say, even though I feel anxious. But if you know why you're feeling anxious, then it's good to say that in the sentence as well. So the more information you add to these sentences, the more effective the result is going to be. Now, this is a good quote. When you accept yourself, the whole world accepts you. This is what we want to achieve with the self-help method. We want to remove the underlying issues that we have within ourselves and realize that we do accept ourselves and we do love ourselves as the person behind all the issues. This is who we are. So this is who we accept and love. So now it's time to add the last part of the sentence. Now, the most common one is I deeply and completely accept myself, but there are others that some people prefer to use, such as I'm okay, or I love and accept myself, I totally accept myself. You can say anything else that means the same thing. So you can choose whichever one you feel more comfortable with. Now you need to put the first and last part of the sentence together. So even though I feel anxious about my relationship, I deeply and completely accept myself. Most intense issue, and then whichever last part of the sentence you're wanting to use. Now it's time to rate the intensity of your issue. So out of 10, how would you rate your most intense issue right now? Now we're doing this so that we can monitor how much it reduces after we've done a couple of rounds of EFT. Okay, so now we need to tap on the points while we say the sentence. The most effective method is to tap on each point while you say the entire sentence. So, even though I feel anxious, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then move on to the next one. Even though I feel anxious, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then you move through each point, saying the complete sentence until you've done one round of EFT. So I'm going to do a template here for you. I'll tap on each of the points. I'll leave enough time between each point so that you can say in your mind your own sentence, and just follow along with me as I tap on the points. So there you go, that's one round of EFT. After doing your round of EFT on your issue today, how do you feel now? Now we need to rate the intensity of your issue now. Back when it started, it might have been at a 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, and now it may have reduced to a 6 or a 3. If the symptom is still there and it's not reduced that much, then I would go back and do another round or two of the same, and you can use the template. If you're happy with the result, then you can move on. So, did it work? If it worked, great. Now you know the power and the effectiveness of what EFT can do for you. Now, when you're doing EFT, there's a few tips that really help the effectiveness of how much it's going to work for you. So here are some tips about each type of symptom that you might be tapping on. The most important one is when you're tapping on an issue, to really focus on that issue while you're tapping and saying your sentence. So all your attention is focused on that issue, focused on the pain, or focused on the emotion, or focused on that thought and how it makes you feel. This way it really hones in on the issue and allows a greater level of separation between you and the issue, which is what we want to reduce the symptom. So when we're tapping for pain, we want to really describe in detail this pain. Is it aching? Is it sharp? Where exactly is it? How is it making us feel as well is important. Anything about the pain at all, we need to include it into the sentence. So for example, a sentence might be, even though this annoying, sharp, weird pain makes me feel angry and irritated, I deeply and completely accept myself. So you're including the description of the pain, but you're also including how it makes you feel as well. When you're tapping on emotion, ask yourself where in the body you feel your emotion, what reasons you may have for experiencing the emotion. Quite often we feel anxiety in our stomachs, so you could say, even though I feel anxious in my stomach, or even though I feel anxiety and I have a sore stomach. If there's a reason why you're anxious, then it's good to bring this into it too. So even though I'm anxious because I'm going to a job interview, or even though I'm anxious because I think my partner's going to leave me, or even though I'm anxious because I'm running late, whatever it is, it works a lot better if you include that reason into your sentence. Now, when you're using EFT to decrease negativity around past events, the best and most effective way to do this is to look at how the event makes you feel first. So you can write down the memory or the past event, and then write down how it makes you feel right now, and also how it made you feel back then, because sometimes they're different. And you need to treat both aspects. So even though I was angry at the time and now I feel insecure, you need to incorporate both of these emotions into your sentence. So I'll just give you an example. Say when you were a child, you had the experience of getting lost in the mall and being separated from your parent. You might say, even though I was scared and felt abandoned when I couldn't find my parents in the shopping mall, I deeply and completely accept myself. So this is the memory that you have, but it's also explaining how you felt at the time as well and releasing that. Quite often people get to the point where they remember what it was, but it no longer has an effect on them. and that's because they have treated the emotion around the issue, and therefore, because they are no longer traumatized by the memory, they can move on. Then I would move to how you're actually feeling now. So if this emotion is bringing up something for you in the present, then you need to do EFT and utilize the sentence that describes how this memory makes you feel. So thoughts, negative thoughts that arise, sometimes they only last momentarily, and then other ones linger. And the ones that are reoccurring and the ones that you are presently experiencing right now can be released. And it can feel strange to tap on thoughts because we're so invested in our thoughts. But the truth of it is, sometimes they're an illusion and they're not serving you. So if you release these negative thoughts, then it allows space for a different perspective, which is hugely beneficial if you can't change your situation, or if the thought is making you feel trapped, or if it's putting you in a negative space. It needs to be shifted in order for you to find that perspective that makes you happy and makes you see the world in a better light, or see your situation in a better light. So it's important that you get used to releasing these negative thoughts with EFT. Sometimes it's just a thought, and sometimes there's a really good reason why you're thinking that. It's like a story or a movie that we cycle in our minds. When you're releasing a negative thought, it's important to include the reason for thinking what you're thinking with the EFT sentence, so that you can remove all aspects of that thought pattern or that negative thought. For example, you may be having these negative thoughts similar to the cartoon picture we've got going on here. A lady wondering whether her partner who works with her is just a client, or whether they're getting a bit more friendly than just being a client. And these sorts of negative thoughts that go on in our heads can what make us feel anxious from time to time. And if we treat these negative thoughts and we shift them, then we remove ourselves from any influence over those thought patterns, having an influence on our partners and possibly enabling this process of being cheated on to happen, because we're continuously thinking about it or having anxiety about it. Now, in Ayurveda and with the law of attraction, what we think about can very well eventuate if we keep thinking the same thing over and over again. It's like telling the universe you want this thing to happen, even though that's not why we're doing it. But that is the law of attraction. So whatever we're thinking or whatever we're focusing on is what we'll attract. That's why you could have an influence with your anxiety over someone cheating or anything at all that's going on. You could have an influence just by thinking about it. Now, that's a pretty scary thought, but at least we have EFT to help us remove these negative thoughts, so that we remove our own influence from these things happening. So if the symptom is still there after doing a few rounds of EFT, have a look at the tips that I've outlined and just make sure that there isn't anything that you can add to your sentence to really hone in on the issue and its entirety. Also, you may find that after tapping on one symptom, you now have another, which is totally normal. This just means that now you need to tap on the next most intense symptom. So you may have released anger and now some sadness has come up. That's perfectly normal. What you do now is you create another EFT sentence to describe the new symptom that you're experiencing, and then use EFT on that until that decreases, and possibly until it either changes into something else or you feel better. So quite often you might need to do 4 or 5 different symptoms that come up. Sometimes you might get away with just doing one and it's gone, and that's great. And then other times it may be a layering effect of a few symptoms that are clustered together. So you need to release all of them one by one as they come up. The more you release, the better you feel afterwards. It's really quite empowering to be able to remove these layers as easy as it is with EFT, and to make you feel better about how it is that you're feeling, so that the rest of your day is spent in an upbeat mood rather than still having to deal with this anxiety or anger or whatever it is that you may be experiencing. This is a workshop that I've developed just to give you an idea of EFT. So it just gives you the chance to practice it and give it a go and see how it works for you. So don't feel too discouraged if it's just worked for you a little bit, or don't sort of package this whole workshop into whether EFT is going to work for you or not. If it completely hasn't worked for you, then it may be a better environment if you used EFT in the light of a practitioner that's using EFT with you, because your issues may be a little bit more complex and in need of a specialist to help guide you through the right process. But if you're just dealing with a few symptoms that you'd like to remove yourself, then this should have given you an idea as to whether something like EFT would help as a self-help tool. If you've enjoyed this workshop, give us a thumbs up, and if you'd like to participate in more natural health workshops, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.